There comes a moment, not in a man's life, but in his psyche, when the whisper becomes a scream. A moment when the soul, tired of its own betrayal, claws its way to the surface, demanding that the mirror stop lying, that the mask be removed, that the old self, the coward, the pleaser, the addict, the dreamer who never acts, be dragged into the light and executed without mercy. That moment is now. You do not need more time. You do not need more motivation. You need to bury the weak version of yourself, the one who keeps flinching at discomfort, who sells out for acceptance, who fears being disliked more than he fears being average. That version of you was built by survival, but it will never carry you into greatness. It is not your friend. It is not your identity. It is your executioner. Carl Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And yet, that is the only war that matters. You have to confront the shadow, not negotiate with it. You must sit across from the parts of yourself that disgust you, the laziness, the envy, the endless justification of mediocrity, and say with full clarity, I see you, and your time is over. Because if you don't kill the old you, he will kill your future, slowly, silently, smiling, while he does it. He will keep you looping in jobs you hate, in relationships that drain you, in habits that numb you. He will dress it up as being realistic or keeping the peace. But peace without progress is a prison. And realism without vision is surrender. You must become the assassin of your old identity, but not with rage, with surgical precision, with the cold, relentless eye of a warrior monk. You're not here to get revenge on your past. You are here to transcend it. The battlefield is your psyche, and the enemy is the narrative you've repeated so many times. It became gospel. The one that says, you're not that special, that you're doing pretty good, that life is about just getting by and being grateful. That's not gratitude. That's gaslighting. Gratitude without action is just a cage with flowers painted on the walls. True gratitude is recognizing the miracle of your existence and becoming someone worthy of it. But first, you must endure the syphoria. Syphoria, the inner violence that erupts when you attempt to rise above the psychic gravity of your former self. It's the withdrawal from your old addictions, comfort, approval, distraction. It's the pain of expansion, the chaos that ensues when a man stops pretending. Most people tap out here. They feel the tension and retreat. They return to the womb of routine, of small talk and scrolling and staying busy. But you are not most people. You are here because something ancient is stirring inside you. A primal hunger for real transformation. Not the kind you post, the kind you bleed for. That hunger is sacred, and it cannot be fed by tips or tactics. It is fed by fire. The fire of mindset. You must set your thoughts ablaze. Burn the default scripts. If you do not rewire your internal reality, you will forever be a slave to external permission. Mindset is not positivity. It is war strategy. It is the discipline of perception, the ability to stand in hell and find leverage, to see adversity not as punishment, but as proof that your story is worth telling. Mindset says, I will not be seduced by safety. I will not be pacified by praise. I will not be governed by fear disguised as practicality. The old you needed validation to act. The new you acts, then becomes undeniable. But here's the truth. No one wants to admit belief doesn't come first. Action does. You don't become confident by thinking positive. You become confident by surviving what you were sure would kill you. You build belief by doing the thing before you feel ready, before you feel worthy, while your knees still shake. This is how you earn the right to believe in yourself, by doing what your old self would have avoided. And each time you do, you murder a lie, a belief that was never yours to begin with. something inherited from wounded parents, cowardly friends, or a culture that profits from your self-doubt. You were not born to be normal. You were born to become whole. But wholeness requires clarity, a clarity so ruthless it feels like violence to the part of you still living in denial. Clarity is not about knowing your next 10 steps. It's about finally admitting the truth you've been avoiding, that you've been operating at 40%, that you've been playing it safe, that you've been building a life you secretly resent because it keeps you comfortable. Clarity rips the veil off your illusions. It shows you where your time leaks, where your boundaries bend, where your excuses hide. And once you see it, really see it, you cannot go back. You cannot unsee the chains you call jewelry. You cannot unfeel the prison you call freedom. You either become the architect of your reality, or you remain a tenant in someone else's design. But once clarity strikes, vision is born. And vision is sacred. It is not a fantasy. It is not a goal. It is the encrypted memory of your highest self, the version of you that already exists, waiting for you to stop being hypnotized by distractions. Your vision is not a luxury. It's a responsibility. And it demands sacrifice. Not the kind the world applauds, the quiet kind. Sacrificing who you were for who you could be, sacrificing the applause of the herd for the integrity of your own soul. And that's where purpose is forged, not found, forged. Purpose is not a career path. It is a declaration of war against your own insignificance. It is the inner vow to live in such a way that when death comes, it finds you empty, not full of dreams deferred and talents untouched, but empty because you gave it all. You left nothing behind. And that kind of life requires discipline, not motivation, discipline. Discipline is doing what must be done, even when your old self screams for relief. Discipline is loving yourself enough to suffer now, so you don't suffer forever. It is treating your potential like a duty, not a hobby. And that duty leads to action. Not busy work, not planning, not journaling about what you might do one day. Real, ruthless, terrifying action, the kind that makes your old identity tremble. The kind that kills the old you a little more every time you move. Because action is the scalpel of transformation. It doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't ask for your confidence or your convenience. It just cuts. And in that cutting, in the tearing away of habit and hesitation, a new identity is born. But that birth comes at a cost. It demands that you give up being understood, that you stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to their own smallness, that you silence the old voices, the ones that echo from your childhood, whispering you're too much or not enough, or somehow both. You will lose people, you will outgrow circles, you will be accused of changing. Good. Because the only thing worse than being misunderstood is being defined by people too afraid to evolve. Growth is betrayal of the mediocre version of you that the world learned to tolerate. And if you want to become someone who cannot be manipulated, dismissed, or emotionally hijacked, you must become someone whose identity is earned, not inherited. That is where resilience is born, in the willingness to be forged by fire and still walk forward, not because you feel invincible, but because you are no longer attached to being invulnerable. Resilience is a sacred armor that is only built by being broken. It is not found in avoidance, but in endurance. It's not that life stops testing you, it's that you stop flinching. And that only happens when you stop seeing discomfort as a threat and start seeing it as a compass. Adaptability is not about being flexible, it's about being sovereign in any environment. It's knowing that your power is not in your conditions, but in your capacity to respond, to pivot without panic, to rebuild without bitterness, to evolve without permission. This is the art of becoming untouchable, not because nothing hurts you, but because nothing owns you. And to reach that state, you must live in a state of learning. Ruthless, honest, endless learning. Not the kind you seek to feel smart, the kind that humbles you, that breaks your false certainty, that reveals how much of your suffering came from ignorance disguised as confidence. True learning is not about accumulation, it's about deletion, unlearning the lies, stripping away the conditioning, killing the myths that kept you small. And from that place of stripped clarity, something miraculous happens. Gratitude, not the passive, polite kind that's written in a journal, the kind that floods you like a storm because you realize all of it. Every betrayal, every delay, every breakdown was necessary. Because without it, you would still be asleep, still waiting, still wearing the mask. Gratitude becomes a weapon, not to fight the world, but to fight forgetfulness, to never forget how far you've come, to never forget the cost of your awakening. And from that storm of gratitude, from the ashes of who you used to be, emerges something rare, something sacred. A man who is no longer afraid of his own power. A man who no longer negotiates with weakness. A man who understands that his past is not his prison, it's his proof. Proof that he can endure, proof that he can choose, proof that he can become. And so you keep moving, not because it's easy, but because you have decided, truly decided, that the old you must die. Not one day, not when it's convenient, now. This is your moment. Stand in the fire. Burn the mask. Kill the old you before he kills your future. And rise, because the old you is cunning. He doesn't die in a single blaze. He waits in the corners. He disguises himself in new habits with the same old roots. He tells you you've changed enough, that this new version of you, this halfway evolution, is good enough. Good enough for who? The crowd that never took a risk? The family that taught you fear as love? The world that praises conformity while selling illusions of freedom? No. You didn't come this far to be half awake. You came to burn every bridge back to mediocrity, to exile comfort, to declare war on every ounce of yourself that still craves the approval of people who gave up on their own becoming. You don't need more advice. You don't need another podcast, another book, another affirmation. You need to look your old self in the eye, the liar, the saboteur, the addict, and say, I will bury you. And not with hatred, but with devotion to something greater. Because this is not just about achievement. This is about transcendence. About becoming a living embodiment of discipline, vision, and sovereign strength in a world begging you to stay soft, small, and scared. They will call you arrogant. Let them. They don't understand that confidence built on self-conquest is not arrogance, it's clarity. They will call you cold. Let them. They don't understand that warmth without boundaries is self-betrayal. They will call you obsessed. Let them. They don't understand that obsession is what it feels like to finally be alive. You must become immune to their projections, because the further you go, the louder the resistance will become, not from the world, but from within. The voice that says, who do you think you are? Here's the answer. I am the one who refused to die in comfort. I am the one who stopped asking permission to evolve. I am the one who turned pain into fuel, doubt into data, fear into fire. I am the one who chose to kill the false self every damn day until only truth remains. And what is that truth? That your life is a weapon, a story being written with every choice, and that one day, when it's over, the only question that will matter is, did you live it as who you were or who you were becoming? The difference is everything. And here's the paradox. The more you kill the old self, the more you remember who you've always been. Not the persona, the essence. The primal, untouchable core that no trauma could destroy, no failure could stain, no critic could diminish. The child before the conditioning. The warrior before the doubt. The soul before the story. That is what you're fighting for. Not a better life, a truer one. And to live a life of truth, raw, wild, disciplined truth, you must embrace what the old you feared most, discomfort, solitude, confrontation, intensity. Intensity is not your enemy. It is the birthplace of all things sacred. There is no transformation without intensity, no awakening without rupture, no greatness without grief. You must grieve the old you, mourn him like a death in the family, because he was real. He protected you. He got you here. But he cannot take you further. And so, with love, with power, with fire in your eyes, you kill him. Every morning you wake and choose the hard path. Every moment you act without applause. Every time you say no to the easy yes, you kill him. And in that death, the future is born. A future not built on accident, but intention. Not reaction, but creation. Not conformity, but clarity. And it all starts now. This moment, this breath, this line in the sand, where you stop performing, stop explaining, stop waiting, kill the old you. Because the world needs the real you. And you need the future only he can never touch. Because there's a version of you standing at the edge of your destiny, watching, waiting, not with arms crossed in judgment, but with a fire behind his eyes. He's seen what you are capable of. He's the ghost of your unlived potential. And he will not wait forever. You either become him or you become haunted by him. That's the cost of staying the same. You don't just lose time, you lose alignment. You lose the sacred collision between your capacity and your calling. The old you doesn't fear death. He fears responsibility. Because once you own your power, you can't play victim anymore. You can't blame the world. You can't say, I didn't know. You do know. You've always known. And every time you betray that knowing, your soul suffers. Quietly, incrementally, until one day, regret becomes louder than fear. But by then, the damage is done. So do not wait. This isn't a pep talk. This is an invocation. A call to the part of you that remembers. The part that was never confused, never compliant, never small. The part that lives in your bones, not your brain. That ancient voice beneath the noise that says, stand, rise, burn. Because you weren't born to chase balance. You were born to chase integration. To unify the fractured parts of your psyche, the warrior, the monk, the poet, the beast, and bring them into alignment. Not peace. Alignment. Cohesion. Jung said, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. That means your darkness isn't the enemy. It's the forge. It is in facing your rage, your shame, your lust, your envy, your apathy that you become sovereign. Not ruled by your shadows, but informed by them. Not enslaved by your impulses, but empowered by their transmutation. This is inner alchemy. The old you either resists it or is consumed by it. Because here's the brutal truth. What you do not transform, you transmit to your work, your relationships, your children, your legacy. And the man who does not transform himself becomes the monster he was trying to avoid. So kill the old you not with violence but with vision, with a steady daily execution of higher choices, with a brutal honesty that says, I am not here to be liked. I am not here to blend in. I am here to embody the future I refused to abandon. Because that future has a cost, and the invoice is always paid in self-destruction. Not of the body, but of the outdated self, the one who stayed silent to avoid conflict, the one who waited for the right time, the one who blamed fate while avoiding responsibility. You are not that man anymore. You are the flame now, the catalyst, the breaker of patterns, the end of a bloodline of excuses. You kill the old you and you liberate every version of you that never got to breathe. The little boy who wanted more, but was told to sit down and be grateful. The teenager who almost risked it all but settled because they told him to be practical. The young man who kept his voice low so no one would feel threatened. You kill the old you and you bring him all back to life. This is not personal growth. This is resurrection. And resurrection is messy. It is wild. It is sacred warfare. It is the refusal to let your pain go unused. The refusal to hand your life over to distractions. The refusal to be a placeholder in your own story. This is your revolution. And it begins not with a scream, but with a decision. A cold, clear, final decision. The old me ends here. Now, step forward and burn everything behind you. Because behind you lies the graveyard of almost brave enough, almost ready, almost alive. Do not turn back. Let the ashes remind you. Let them feed the fire that propels you forward, not to escape your past, but to confront the future with eyes wide open, fists clenched in resolve, spine straight with purpose. Because the future does not belong to the talented. It belongs to the relentless. And relentlessness is not a mood. It's a covenant. A promise made in private, renewed in pain, kept in silence. You keep going, not because it's working, but because you said you would. You rise not because the world claps, but because your future self is watching. And the day you stop needing external permission is the day your power becomes untouchable. Because you are no longer living for approval. You are living for alignment. Alignment with a man who could have been buried in mediocrity, but chose mastery. With a man who no longer flinches at pressure, but welcomes it as a test, a mirror, a refining fire. Pressure is not the enemy, it is the sculptor, and only those willing to be carved by it will ever become art. You must stop asking the world to go easy on you. The world owes you nothing but resistance. And that resistance is not punishment, it's preparation. A furnace to purify everything weak, false, performative. You say you want peace, but what you really need is power. Not power over others, power over your own weakness, power over your own story. Because until you have power over yourself, every success is a leash. Every relationship, a transaction. Every dream, a hostage. This is why the old you must die, because he lives for control. But the new you lives for freedom. And freedom is not the absence of chains, it is the presence of unshakable will. So take back your will, take back your name. Speak it not as who you were, but as who you are becoming. Not the broken boy, not the obedient worker, not the smiling mask, but the weapon. The soul forged in agony, polished by solitude, consecrated by action. The man who does not run anymore, not from pain, not from pressure, not from power, because he has nothing left to prove. He has already proven it by showing up every day after the illusion shattered, by rebuilding from the rubble, by rising not with motivation, but with mission. He is not addicted to hope. He is addicted to forward. And forward is where fear dies, because fear cannot survive motion. It thrives in pause, in overthinking, in waiting for the perfect moment. But once you move, truly move, fear loses its grip. The fog lifts, the noise fades, and clarity becomes your weapon. That's what the old you never understood. He kept waiting for clarity to come before action. But clarity is the consequence of movement, and courage is the cure for confusion. So move, bleed if you must, cry if you must, crawl if you must, but move. Because the grave of the old self is not dug in dramatic moments. It is dug in every ordinary moment. You choose courage over comfort, silence over noise, discipline over impulse. The grave gets deeper every time you say, not this time, not today. That's not who I am anymore. And one day, you look back and realize you didn't just kill the old you buried him with honor, because he brought you here. But only you could take it further. So stand tall in your new skin. Don't apologize for your evolution. Don't explain your transformation. Don't ask for understanding. It's not their path. It's yours. And yours is brutal, beautiful, sacred. Yours is the path that shows you the moment you stop lying to yourself. So walk it like a man who remembers what it felt like to forget. Walk it like a man who understands that becoming is not a trend, it is a sacred rebellion. Walk it like a man who knows the old me is dead, and I will never mourn him again. And then, when the storm has passed, when the dust settles over the battlefield of your psyche, and the final echoes of the old you vanish into silence like a nameless tomb, you stand there not as a survivor, not as a broken remnant of who you once were, but as something entirely reborn, not a victim, not an extra in someone else's story, not a masked performer desperate to be liked. You have killed him, the one who smiled to be accepted, who kept quiet to be loved, who betrayed himself to be tolerated. And his death is not a tragedy. It is a liberation. For now, in the aftermath, when everything false has been scorched, every numbing habit, every beautifully worded excuse, every elegant delay, you can finally see yourself, not the face in the mirror. The truth beneath the skin, the essence beneath the voice, the raw presence beneath every mask the world forced you to wear. What remains is real, unpolished, unapologetic, unmistakably you. This is not self-improvement. This is resurrection. This is what it means to remember, not with the mind, but with the soul. To remember who you were before the world told you who to be. To remember the primal fire that burned in you long before you knew what fear was. And with that remembrance comes a vow, not written in ink, but carved in blood, sealed by discipline, sanctified by every scar this journey demanded. From this moment forward, I bow to no past version of myself. This isn't a new chapter. It's a new language, a new law, a new lineage of thought, forged from the ashes of the coward you used to be. No more delays, no more negotiations, no more asking the world for permission to rise. You did not come here to be liked. You came here to break patterns. You did not come here to be safe. You came here to set fires. You did not come here to blend in. You came here to redefine existence. And now you walk. Not as the man they remember, but as the man they'll never forget. Because when you kill the old you, you don't just change your future, you protect it. And from this day forward, you will never again mourn the man you had to become, to finally meet the one you were born to be.